After non-stop discussion of ratings and the quality of the NBA product, multiple teams on Christmas Day delivered some phenomenal games, from Minnesota holding off a comeback from a Luka-less Mavericks led by a Kyrie heater, to another classic matchup between LeBron and Steph, to a surprising victory from the Sixers over the Celtics, and of course what stood out to at least me the most, a 42-point game in Madison Square Garden from Victor Wembanyama. Also, there was a Nuggets versus Suns game. It was just really late, so I didn't watch it, and I'm on vacation, so I'm not trying that hard. Sorry, please forgive me, Nuggets and Suns fans. Before I get into today's video, I want to talk about our sponsor, Factor. If you're like me, aka a 20-something with a pretty erratic schedule, then you likely do not have a consistent meal plan or diet. For me, generally speaking, keeping up with either of those is extremely difficult. Luckily, that's where today's sponsor, Factor, comes in. Factor makes your nutrition goals easy by delivering fresh, never frozen meals right to your door. I know the health benefits are what might stand out to you initially, however, Factor meals are not only healthier, but also cheaper than takeout. And if you have a hectic schedule, being able to prepare something quickly like you can with Factor really helps. Only 2 minutes in the microwave and your meal is ready. Another thing that's great with Factor is it's very customizable. You can specify options to your dietary restrictions. There are vegan options, calorie smart options if you're trying to lose weight, keto options if you're avoiding carbs, and protein plus if you're trying to get them gains. Factor also offers gourmet plus meal options if you're trying to get a little bit of a gourmet flavor weekly inside of your meal plan. Ever since I started using Factor, I've finally been able to be on top of my meal plan. I struggled with this for years, but now when I don't have the time to prepare something, I can get the speed paired with the nutrition as well as a great taste. Head to factor75.com or use the link in the description and add the code 50 also rusty to get 50% off of your first box. Again, that is code 50 also rusty for 50% off of your first box from Factor. Thank you to Factor for sponsoring this video. All right, so in today's video, I mostly want to talk about Victor Wembanyama. However, I felt it was only right to do a quick fire recap of some of these games, not the level of depth that I did in my NBA Cup tournament video, because that was clearly a mistake. Who wants to watch an hour of game recaps? Nobody. You still could if you wanted to. The video is still up, but I understand why people did not do that. Anyways, I want to primarily talk about Victor, and we're going to get to that Knicks versus Spurs game. But first, let's cover the 3 games that I watched outside of that. Again, I'm sorry about the no Suns Nuggets. So here is your NBA Christmas quickfire. As I said, this was a great NBA Christmas. Much better than I remember last year being, and much better than I remember it being in quite a long time. So first up, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Dallas Mavericks. Now, Luka Doncic ended up getting hurt halfway into this game. He's actually possibly expected to be out for an extended period of time, which really sucks. Luckily, the Mavericks have actually been much more all right without him than they have in years past. Kyrie would go off to mount a big comeback in the second half after they went into the half trailing by 17 points. He had 26 second half points on 9 for 14 shooting, multiple clutch shots, had a pair of back-to-back threes, couple of mid-range pull-ups, typical Kyrie masterclass shit, just some of the most beautiful offense you could ask for. Less beautiful offense, but overall good offense did come from Julius Randle, who had himself a really solid game, especially as a playmaker with 8 dimes. Rudy Gobert was really active offensively in the first half of this game, going 4 for 5 with 10 points. The only miss that he had out of that entire stretch was this really ugly left-handed floater that just like completely missed the rim. So naturally, that clip is what went viral on Twitter. And I do think it is that negativity bias that is very much a large part of the reason why his coverage is overall so bad all the time. But B, it is also a matter of just why I think the ratings and all that stuff is a problem right now is because everybody's being a negative dick all the time, and it just leads to an environment that's like, well, I guess I don't want to consume this sport right now, but I'll stop dipping my toes in that pool. That's a conversation for another day. Ant had a really great first half in this one. He had a couple of wild shots, including a buzzer-beating 3 over 2 defenders where he took the shot off of 1 foot. He had a bad second half, though, which was a large part of the reason that this game ended up getting really, really close late. Did hit what was essentially the nail in the coffin shot, so I will give him credit for that. on a drive with a left-handed finish. But overall, it probably wouldn't have been that close to begin with if he did not struggle so much. A big part of that was that they put PJ Washington on him in the second half, and I think that physicality, having the larger defender on him, definitely bothered him a good bit. It looked like Minnesota might let this one slip through the cracks, but they ended up closing pretty strong after being asleep for quite a while. Moving on to Philadelphia versus Boston. First thing I want to say is, man, did I appreciate the red accessories from the Celtics. I think they've done that in the past before, but it's cute. I like it, especially given that we don't have NBA Christmas jerseys. This is, a decent compromise, all things considered. Joel Embiid ended up having 27 points in this one, but Tyrese Maxey ended up being the star of the show with 33 points and 12 assists. One of the best games that I have ever seen from him, especially defensively. Yabusele was awesome playing the backup five. He was plus 18 in 21 minutes with 10 points and 2 3-pointers. Caleb Martin had a huge game. He had 4 fourth quarter threes. One of them was from like really deep and he banked it in. The other 3 were like basically completely wide open because the defense didn't really respect him as a shooter like that, but he ended up finishing the game with 7 threes, so joke's on them, I guess. I guess he was also just making up for the fact that Paul George was completely awful in this game, especially from outside as he went 0 for 7. I'm beginning to get worried that Paul George might just be washed. That would suck. I hope that's not the case, but he is running out of time. He has had enough of a sample size at this point where I'm like, I don't fucking know, man. Not enough of a sample size with the team actually healthy for me to declare that this is just the case, but I definitely don't feel as good about it as I would like to. Kristaps Porzingis ended up getting hurt in the second quarter, which definitely did not help. Also didn't help that they didn't have Drew Holiday in this game. Even though Drew has kind of disappointed as a three-point shooter this year, he's obviously still a very positive player. Jaylen Brown struggled with his shot for pretty much the entire game. He had a really strong third quarter that was pretty pivotal and them bridging the gap a little bit, but overall he had 23 points on 23 shots. Jason Tatum played well pretty much the entire game, although there were a couple of possessions where Tyrese Maxey actually bested him while defending him, which was pretty surprising to me. Peyton Pritchard went 1 for 9. I don't know if I even properly highlighted. Tyrese Maxey was really good in this game, like defensively especially. I've never seen him have this good of a defensive game. So credit to him. He's the reason that Philadelphia was able to get this win, that along with some Caleb Martin shooting. I don't know what Caleb Martin has against the Boston Celtics, but he turns into Michael Jordan when he plays them. The Celtics, I'm honestly a little more concerned about them in terms of their vulnerability than I thought I would at this point in the season. Obviously, they're a little bit hobbled in this one, but the thing is, this team, when they've missed Porzingis or missed Holiday or missed somebody, has managed to step up in the wake of that. That's kind of been one of the stronger attributes of them, is that if they have a guy go down, it's not the end of the world, especially because they have just such an egalitarian approach to offense. But they looked really vulnerable in this game. They made a late comeback, but it was not enough. I'm not really going to be too concerned about them, but I will say, if they don't end up winning a championship this year, it's stuff like this that is an indicator that maybe would give that away from the past. Anyways, moving on to Lakers versus Warriors, we get the LeBron versus Steph matchup, which is the only reason these two get a matchup. Not like they have some historic rivalry otherwise. They did play in the playoffs a little bit ago, but we're here for Steph versus LeBron. Steph actually played a good game in a Christmas game. Been a long time since that's happened. In fact, I don't know if it's ever happened. He is historically just bad on Christmas for some reason. 38 points, 6 assists, 14 for 24 shooting, 8 for 15 from 3. 2 of those threes being some crazy clutch threes to tie it up late. One of them, he was fading out of the corner over LeBron James, and the other was a deep catch and shoot off of the inbound. He got a double bang call from Mike Breen, as that was to tie the game with like 10-ish seconds left on the clock. Unfortunately, the Warriors would proceed to blow the assignment off of the inbound, where Jonathan Kuminga was a little too attached to Rui Hachimura, who was wandering around the baseline there, and ended up allowing an Austin Reeves drive. If Kuminga had stepped up, probably would have altered the shot, or at the very least made him earn it at the free throw line. So yeah, I'll say the same thing everybody else did. He should have helped there, and he didn't. That's the universal reaction to that. As for the Warriors, otherwise, there's depressingly little positive to report here. Dennis Schroeder was awful, hit a big three late, but that's just because it's as wide open as it could have been. That was off of a LeBron James block. Andrew Wiggins had a very mid 21-point game. Buddy Hield is in the sucks now part of his Buddy Hield cycle, so that's fun. That the joy of Buddy Hield in the Warriors jersey has ended as quickly as it has started, and Kaminga is just not a go-to shot creator at an NBA level. He isn't. He just simply is not. They keep leaning on him to be that, and he'll continue to fail because that's just not the type of player that he is. But the Dubs keep asking him to be that because he's really the only one with any semblance of shot creating ability on this team. He did have a filthy off the dribble poster dunk to give him some credit, but overall he went 4 for 10, did not end up having the impact you would have liked. This roster just needs a trade. It's as simple as that. I think they need to do the Jimmy Butler trade, but I'm not going to bother harping on it for too long. I will also add that for the Lakers, AD went down in the first, but LeBron managed to carry them to a win. He had 31 points and 10 assists on 12 for 22 shooting. Austin Reeves, also huge in this one, 26, 10, and 10 with the triple-double and that game-winning layup that I previously mentioned, while Rui Hachimura went 5 for 7 from 3. Max Christie also impressed me a good bit in this game. Overall, 2 for 8 from 3. Not all that amazing, but he did have 16 points on overall decent efficiency, all things considered, and he is shooting 46.7% from 3 in his last 9 games. He has started to look far more like a legitimate NBA player. I was rather doubtful as to whether or not that was going to happen just based on what I had seen from him, but it looks like he is figuring it out in the NBA. Was very fun to get another Curry versus LeBron classic in 2024. Just got to add that here. Like, you got to appreciate it while it's here because it will not be forever. But let's move on to the Knicks versus Spurs game. Before I review Wemby's highlights, just to get a couple of notes here. Wemby in this game shot almost exclusively jumpers, it felt like, especially from 3. He overall took 16 of them, making 6 of them. Threw some lobs to Jeremy Sohan. One of them was really well set up, but Sohan just blew the dunk. The other one, he set him up like a minute later, and that was nice, and that one worked. He also would not score for the last 7 minutes. I think this was in large part because Precious Achiuwa was playing really good defense on him. He had a really crazy offensive rebound where he extended his arm up like higher than Cat could even reach. Got a putback dunk off of that. And he overall had 24 of his 42 in the first half, as well as 11 rebounds in that first half. His total box score ended up being 42 points, 18 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks, 16 of 31 from the field, and 6 of 16 from 3. Jeremy Sohan would go 3 for 3 from 3 for 21 total points. Cat cooked in the paint, didn't have a good game from outside, went 1 for 5, but a couple of pick and rolls, couple of drives, and a really nice sweeping hook shot in the first half. Mikal Bridges started the game automatic. He went 7 for 7 before missing his first shot of the game at like the minute left in the second quarter on a baseline mid-range shot. He put up 15 points in the fourth quarter for a total of 41 points on the game, while Jalen Brunson had an awful game, 20 points on 23 shots. Stephon Castle specifically had a lot of really good moments against him. That was awesome, honestly, that the Knicks were able to win this game in spite of the fact that Jalen Brunson played as poorly as he did. And that is the reason why you have Mikal Bridges on this team. You want him to be able to step up and be more of a shot creator. Karl Anthony Towns has been the best player on this team, but he wasn't really able to cook from outside, and obviously he's not an off of the dribble shot creator. So the ball ended up in Mikal's hands a lot of the times late in this one, and he just could not miss from mid range. He looked like fucking Kawhi Leonard out there, where it's just like, oh, he's taking a mid range shot. Well, that's going in. The Knicks ended up closing with Precious Achiuwa instead of Cat, as he was in foul trouble, and I think Precious did a really good job. He was especially impactful on the defensive end. Bridges and Hart were all over it for New York in that fourth quarter. Hart in particular had a million offensive rebounds, and by that I mean he had 5 in the game in general, but he had 3 of them in the fourth quarter, and almost all of them felt like they were just the most momentum-filled offensive rebounds you could have possibly asked for. Mikal, again, cooking from mid-range. I hope you are happy, old heads. McBride and OG Anunoby also had some big threes. I think McBride's might have even been a sidestep 3. But with that said, I want to talk about Victor Wembanyama and Victor Wembanyama only for the rest of this video. So let's go ahead and look at his highlights from his Christmas Day performance in Madison Square Garden. Okay, I apologize that this is not going to be quite as nice looking as when Rudy does it. I am recording this at my parents' place, and it's just, we just don't got the technology for it out here, but we're still going to overall get the same point out of it. So, as I mentioned, Victor Wembanyama was particularly 3-point happy in this game. He gets this assist right here to Harrison Barnes on the drive, but almost all of the action was coming out of this pick and pop stuff. Here he gets a backcourt to Wemby for the bank shot floater. So as I'm talking about his threes, this is what ends up coming of it. Blocks OG Anunoby on that putback dunk right there. Blocks Josh Hart on this sweeping left-handed attempt at a finish, but Hart manages to corral the rebound and get it to a cutting OG. Right here, the screen, the pick and pop. He's in the mid-range game, and he finds Sohan with the alley-oop and the layup around the rim. That was a really nice adjustment in the air from Jeremy. Trey Jones on the break finds Victor in the corner, and he pulls that three over Cat and talks to the Knicks bench after. That was after missing his first couple of three-point attempts. Gets him right here from a logo three from far outside. It looks fucking ridiculous when he makes those threes. It genuinely does not even look real. It's like a trebuchet is shooting a basketball. On the break here goes right into Cat. Once again, just this bank shot because he can put the ball up so high and he's got the touch for it. Steps into this three-pointer once again. Handoff from Trey Jones using his body as a pseudo screen there. Sets a good screen for Chris Paul. If that doesn't go, that's the offensive rebound that I was talking about. Oh, that looks incredibly choppy. Look at how I got the ball there. Gorgeous. In the post over Josh Hart, gets that midi to go over him from just a little bit inside the free throw line there. That's a shot that he has access to pretty much whenever he wants it. Nice backdoor play there by Devin Vassell with the finish. A really nice dime there. I think the dimes from Victor have been one of the more encouraging things for me because I thought there's another one right there to Jeremy Sohan. I thought that Victor, the playmaker, would be something that took a little bit of time to really materialize, but over his last 10 games, he is averaging 5 assists per game. Easy pick and roll action right there. Cat wasn't sure what to do, tried to step up on the Chris Paul pull up, but he ended up allowing a free lane, and Jalen Brunson was obviously not going to do shit about that. Wide open top of the three. Once again, looks like a trebuchet is shooting the ball. We're into the second half now. Jalen Brunson is going to get this three-pointer blocked by Wemby. Just ridiculous ability to cover space right there. Josh Hart ends up losing the ball, dribbles right into Wemby's hands, so that's a quick and easy steal. Barnes posting up, and we're going to get Cat with this screen from Chris Paul down the middle. Kind of a ugly action, but it does not matter because of the length of Wemby. He's able to get a shot up regardless of if there really wasn't even that much separation on it. And off of an offensive rebound, I think off of his own miss that's not in this clip, gets that three-pointer to go at the top of the key. Seems very comfortable on those top of the key three-pointers. Keeps up with Brunson on the drive there and ends up smacking that. I believe after the review, they ended up calling that as a legitimate block. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that was his fourth of the game. Right here, Champagny, drive, alley-oop, easy stuff. Want to see them do that more, but I think that's something that we're just going to see more with time. Good pick and roll action here with Wemby. Look, that's ridiculous. The ability to just lean in after the pump fake right there. Man, crazy offense. Another good find, turns around in the air and puts that one into the basket. I hate that it took so long to get action like this going because I really think they could have won this game if they did that a little bit more. Not even sure what happened right there. Another deep-ass three from Wemby, and I believe that was his last make of the game. He did make a three-pointer that did not count because there was a foul right before it, but it was from, like, way outside, and one accounted normally. But, yeah, big game from Victor. Lots of three-pointers, big part of it. But overall, some mid-range stuff, a couple of floaters, banked some shots in through some heavy contests. Victor is just unstoppable on the offensive end, and over his last 10 games, he is averaging 28 points, 10.5 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 4 0.5 blocks, 3.8 turnovers is a little high, but he's just under 50% from the field, and he's at 37% from three on 10 attempts per game. His 5.7 free throw attempts a night is a little low. I would like more than that, but he is shooting fucking almost 90% on them, which is absurd. The fact that you can't even fucking foul the guy because he's going to hit his free throws. But I want to highlight specifically this stretch of um, 4 games where he had 7 blocks against the Timberwolves, 4 against Atlanta, 10 against the Portland Trailblazers, and 8 against Philadelphia, which meant that over 4 games he had 29 blocks and averaged 7.3 blocks per game. 7.3 blocks per game. What the fuck? That's ridiculous. So let's get into, is Victor Wembanyama a top 5 player? I already think he's top 10. I don't think there's a lot of people arguing against the idea of him being top 10, but where is he inside that top 10? I've seen some saying that he's top 5. I've seen even a few suggesting that he's already in best player in the league conversations. We're just not ready to say it right now. And there is definitely a degree of needing to prove it where, it's like, how much is this going to maintain and so on. A lot of people have a big issue about his 3-point shot diet. And I do think my number one problem with it isn't that he's taking them, but when he's taking them. I just strongly believe that the thing about Victor Wembanyama threes is he is so open pretty much regardless of whatever you do 9 times out of 10 that shot's going to be just as good of a shot with 5 seconds on the clock as it is with 15. So you might as well see if you can do a little bit more with the possession before you're jacking up a 3. Though he is shooting 37% on 10 threes over this 10-game stretch that I mentioned, which is, pretty good. We're at league average percentage on extremely high volume. You give him the credit of, that's fine as it is, but also there's probably like 2 threes a game that he's taking over that stretch where he would just be better off not taking those threes. So with that being the case, I would rather him just not take as many threes as he is. However, I do feel as though this is a trying to develop this aspect of his game for the future type of thing. Like they are going, yes, obviously Wemby shouldn't be this prolific of a 3-point shooter. The most ideal version of him is not that. And I don't think there's anyone in the Spurs organization. And I don't think Victor Wembanyama thinks that that's the fully best way for him to play. But you let him get these reps in early of being this high volume 3-point shooter, that only adds to how comfortable he will be at that aspect of the game. He's already made more 3-pointers than fucking Stephen Curry did at this point in time in his career. So that goes to show that it's probably only going to make him more and more comfortable as that 3-point shooter. I think the lob aspect of his game that we pretty much all agree needs to be more a prominent aspect of it. That will probably come with a point guard upgrade. Chris Paul is great, but he doesn't have scoring gravity. Same goes for Trey Jones. So if you got a genuine star level point guard next to him, whether that be De'Aaron Fox, LaMelo Ball, Trey Young, whoever it ends up being, they really need to go get that guy because that will make the big difference in Wemby's efficiency and how many threes he ends up taking. But even if I don't love his shot diet across the board, I can say quite confidently that he's still encroaching on top 10 player in the league conversations because as of right now, I think he's the best defender in the league. I think he's the DPOY. I think he's the best defender in the league. And I think that's going to be the same thing that I say every year for a decade now. Honestly, there is a chance that Victor ends up being the best defender in the history of this game. So he already has that going for him. I think he's the best defender in the entire fucking NBA. So on that end, no gripes. On the offensive end, I have issues with his shot diet, but even with those issues, he's still averaging out to 25 points per game on the season on good ass efficiency. He's at nearly fucking 50, 40, 90 over this 10-game stretch He's obviously he's 2.6% off on his 3-point percentage, 1.5% off on his field goal percentage, and 0.5% off on his free throw percentage. So he's not quite there, but he's pretty close to it. And 28 points over this stretch, 25 on the season on overall good efficiency. If I can go ahead and find what his true shooting percentage is. Yeah, he's at 61% on the season, which is a little bit above league average. He is also shooting 85% at the rim. Last year he shot 70. He's shooting 85% at the rim. He's also shooting 46% from 10 to 16 feet when last year he shot just 32%. So that short mid-range shot is something he's getting a little bit more comfortable with, even if he's reduced his volume a little bit. So, and I only think he's going to get better on top of this. Yeah, I think Victor might be encroaching on the top 5 conversation. So let me say the players that I think right now I'm confident are better than Victor Wembanyama. There's obviously the top 3 players in the league. You know, Luka Doncic has struggled to start this year, but I think it's fair to say he's still a top 3 guy. Maybe you wouldn't rank him that based on his performance this year, but I'm not dropping him out of that top 3 legitimately. I did make that who are the top 10 players so far. That was very predicated on the start of the season and not overall who is actually the best. And in that case, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis are the 3 best players in the league, and I'm not hearing about anybody else being better than them, at least right now. I would also say that both Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jason Tatum are better players than Victor Wembanyama. After that, I think it can really be Wemby. I think Wemby could legitimately be the 6th best player in the NBA. Now, someone like Joel Embiid, I think, gets right back into that conversation. He has had a rough start to his season, obviously, but I think he probably amounts to being better than Victor when he is healthy, if he can get to that point this year. Kevin Durant is also like right there in that conversation. Ironically, many of the things that you would praise Wemby for, you can praise Durant for. The only thing I would add is that Durant isn't the best defender in the world. Durant has a lot more polish to his offensive game, especially as a mid-range creator, but otherwise not that much of a difference. I don't think KD can finish at the rate that Wemby can. I think their playmaking, especially relative to position, is pretty comparable. Wemby's the better rebounder. I would hope so, given that he's a little bit taller. Anthony Edwards has had a weird season. As of right now, I'm not going to place him over Wemby. Anthony Davis is really close, especially because he's the only guy who can get in the conversation defensively with Victor, and I think there's some comparability to their offense there. But I was looking around the rest of the league, like I don't think LeBron. Let's look at all these teams. For the Celtics, not Jaylen Brown, not Cat. Cat's really good offensively, and I would say better offensively than Victor, but he's not overall a better player. Not Donovan Mitchell, not Cade Cunningham, no one on the Pacers, not Damian Lillard. Maybe Paulo if he was healthy, but he's not, so I'm not going to give him that. He's definitely better than Franz, better than Jimmy and Bam, better than LaMelo Ball, better than Trae Young, better than Kyrie Irving, better than Sengun, better than Ja Morant, better than everybody on the Pelicans. De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker as well. James Harden and Norman Powell, definitely. He's better than Steph, especially after his relatively slow start to the season. Don't think Jamal Murray is in Victor conversations. I know damn well Julius Randle ain't. J-Dub isn't. No one on the Blazers. No one on the Jazz. So, like, yeah. I think it's also partially that, like, the bottom layer of the top 10 players in the league is not as good as it used to be. I also should highlight Jalen Brunson with the Knicks. He's been not quite as good either as he was last year. So just looking across the league, I'm failing to see anyone besides for, again, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Jokic, SGA, and Tatum. Those are the only guys. If by the end of the year, Durant, Embiid, and Anthony Davis, maybe even Anthony Edwards, are ranked higher than Victor, wouldn't shock me. But it also wouldn't shock me if we were going, okay, are we sure that SGA and Tatum are clearly better. Right now, I'm pretty sure of that, but by the end of the year, I don't know that I will be. There's a chance that the best player in the league conversation ends up being between Luka, Jokic, Giannis, and Victor. I think my prediction going into this year was that Victor would solidify himself as a top 10 player in the league, and I think he's done that. And then that next year would be when we start having best in the world conversations, but he might be arriving to those conversations even earlier than I already expected. All I know is that's really funny to me in all of this. Victor pays attention to the shit that people say about him. I feel like, especially like that anonymous GM that said that Victor is an offensive liability. Ever since that fucking report came out, Victor has been scorching the entire season. So yeah, shout out to Victor Wembanyama. I I don't understand how there's a who should be the face of the league conversation. Look at this fucking guy. Look at this fucking guy. You telling me people don't want to see that? Come on, man. This is like watching an alien play hoops, and I fucking love it. And I really, really, really hope that we can see uh, more of a focus on him, more of a credit to him. And I hope we don't do too much of the gatekeeping what conversations he belongs in just because he's new. I think we as NBA fans are sometimes a little bit apprehensive to pass that crown around, to pass around best player in the league conversations, and I think we should be. But come on, look at this fucking guy. That's my argument. Look at him. All right, that's it. I don't know if I'm editing this or Rudy is editing it, but either way, shout out to us. Shout out to you if you made it to this point in the video. If you want to enjoy some NBA discourse with some like-minded individuals, we have a Discord group chat that you can join by joining our Patreon or becoming a channel member over on the main channel. We have a lot of big things ready for next year, so excited to talk about them. There's going to be an update video around the corner soon, but yeah, that is it. Goodbye.